and welded straight into this side, what would happen from looking at it from this thickness profile is I come here and my weld would more than likely do this, okay, as I start it around. So then what I have is I have a lack of penetration right there, okay? So on this side I'm going to show you what we do. We want to make sure that we bring our grinder in here and we grind this down to where it's thin. We want to do it on both sides. Okay. However, I'm just going to show you on this side so we can compare. So I want to ramp this up like this, grind it down, making sure that I do not get my grinder out here into my land distance. So my land stays 1/8 of an inch thick. So I don't want my grinder to come out here and knock my land off, otherwise it'll be hard to control. Okay. So I want to make sure my land's here. I stopped there, my keyhole is here, and I'm going to draw that side here in a minute, okay? So when I start welding, I'm going to preheat here, strike my rod on my high point of my tack. I'm going to let my rod stabilize, and I'm going to come in here, and especially at this, I'm going to come in at this angle, being from a downhill going vertical. I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to stop my welding rod right here in the middle. I want to make sure that I let this preheat and I want my weld to penetrate. So that way, as I start to come around, then I am getting good penetration and fusion all along this weld. See the difference? Now we have a full penetration weld here versus there was a lack there. Okay? Now looking at this from a side profile, what I want to see is I'm going to see my keyhole. Okay, so here's my weld. My land has disappeared and this is my keyhole where I started welding. Now I've ground this down, so I'm going to start here. I'm going to let my rod preheat, and I don't want to jump to here, because if I jump to here, I'll be here. Okay, so I said I wanted to stop right before I got there, so I'm going to stop my electrode right here and wait for this to preheat and open up. So this is exactly what happened here. Stop shy, don't go to my keyhole, stop shy about a rod distance before it, wait for it to heat up, and then I push to make sure that I get my penetration. And now I'm getting my weld flow, my keyhole and everything will come around with me. Okay? Very important to grind, to feather those tacks. Grind them down so your starts and stops are where most welders have issues. I will be showing you this in the booth as well, but I would recommend at some point doing a lot of starts and stops just to get practice coming in and out of those tacks. Okay? All right. Vertical down travel starts at the top, comes down. Vertical up travel starts at the top and goes up. Feel free to read through these. Sorry if I think I may have said the wrong thing. Vertical up starts at the bottom of the weld joint and you're progressing uphill. Naturally, look here. Vertical down, you're using higher current and twice the travel speed. Vertical up, gravity is working for you, so you're using, and heat travels, heat amplifies as we're going uphill. So we use lower current, less heat, and you travel a little bit slower, let gravity work for you. Somewhat typical of what you may see in a welding procedure. It may tell you the passes. And again, this isn't always going to be followed. A lot of times, you may see that it can be done, it may say 3 to 5 weld passes and procedures. Quite common, it does. It is up to you to decide to make sure that it is a full weld profile and an acceptable weld. Whether it takes 3 passes or 5 or 8. Okay? Naturally, this is an essential variable, so the larger the electrode, let's look here, these are all large, right? So what if we jump down to 1/8 of an inch, all of a sudden we're going to be like 7 passes, 9 passes, depends. It does not tell us what the thickness is either. Here's your factors influencing the passes: diameter and thickness, the joint design, direction of travel, and the current. Keeping the heat down, keeping it down below. I know many welders that weld only 332 so they can keep welding all day long and keep their inner pass temperature below 500 to 600 degrees. Okay? And they can do that by welding 332. They jump up to 532. After one rod, they're up at 600 degrees. They got to stop or they might be busted right there. Feel free to read through these. Different positions. 1G, 5G, 2G. And refer to your book as well. Your book gives you a lot of good examples of rod angles and so forth. You know, you always want to be aiming towards the center of the pipe. So even if my electrode's like this, okay, so we're defying gravity a little bit, I'm still aiming towards the center. Okay? This is what you want the inside to look like on a root penetration, just like an outside of a weld. Especially on the root pass, the inside is more critical than the interior of the pipe is more critical than your face of the weld that you just put on. Because we're going to grind off the top before we put another weld pass on. Okay? Always remember that as we're welding, okay, whether it be in 2G, 5G, 6G, whatever, open or closed, what, think of what you're going to cover up. Any exposed weld is crucial. I mean, all weld's crucial. But remember, like on a root penetration, the interior of your pipe, you're not going to be able to get in there and fix that. So you want the interior to look really good. And if you've got a couple high spots on your outside, it doesn't matter. You're going to grind it off and some slag on it. You're going to grind it off and then weld back over it. So you're creating more, you're fusing it together. Think of that before you start welding as well. I need to make sure the interior is good. I don't care if there's a high spot on the outside, as long as the inside's good, because I can't fix that. Okay? Refer to your book and the PowerPoint slides. So in this case over here, look, there's a 60 degree. This is an API, 30-degree angle. Okay? Most of ours is going to be 37.5 degrees. As you can see, even as you're doing horizontal, and hopefully at this point I've shown you one, you know, you're going to be setting in here. As I'm welding along, I'm going to be using somewhat of a drag angle as I go around it as well. Okay? However, on this 5G position, when I start out on the bottom, I want to be straight up and down so that way I get my penetration in there. But as soon as I can hear that echo, the penetration is there, I'm going to take it to a drag angle. Now as I go around right about here, this is where I start, gravity starting to work for me and not against me, okay? Here I'm having to push it up in and kind of shoot through that keyhole and stack it up in there. As I get here, gravity is starting to pull it down and slack and work for me and stack it up. So I want to go drag angle, and then about here I turn to more of a push angle, like going vertical. And then kind of the same thing here. Now I'm going to be less and less, pointing this way because gravity's really working for me coming here, okay? So faster travel speed, maybe lower amperage if I need to, because it's going to try to be drooping down versus down here I needed more amperage, higher amperage pushing through. If I have to stop here, a lot of times I'll back my amps off 2 or 3 amps and then push through this way, okay? Feel free to read through this. Bead sequencing, we started this in weld 1. This is the most crucial thing, that the biggest flaw I've seen with most welders in the world. Not being able to stack their beads correctly. Okay, I want to clarify something real quick. I showed you where to start on your tacks, right? Now this is for weld position only. When you get out there and you start welding in the real production, you've seen how earlier all that documentation said that there could only be so much porosity or so much slag within every 2 inches, correct? So if I'm testing, like weld testing, I'm going to start and stop my weld right here, almost every time. Because I want my Q-fons to come out of here. That's where they're going to come. But on an in-production weld, it's going to be X-rayed or ultrasound. Okay? So now I want to stagger my starts and stops. So that way, if I've got just 1 or 2 specks of porosity, they're not all right here. Because then if I create, if the amount of porosity or discontinuity is really high or extreme in one special area, it's going to bust me. But if I got 1 or 2 spots of porosity here, maybe 1 or 2 spots, 2 inches over here, and then 2 inches over here, there's 4 inches in between them. So now, I may have total aggregate, I may have 3/16 of an inch total, but I'm over 4 inches, not 2. So that's the difference. That's how we save ourselves when we get into code production welding. We make sure our starts and stops are staggered so that if we do have a slight discontinuity, because we all make mistakes, but we need to know our limitations as well, okay? Seeing our keyhole there, changing electrodes, same thing I talked about on the board when I drew the feathering your tacks down and so forth. The rest of these are just jobs. I want you to read through these on your own, and then we will be doing the welds that are I've required in the shop, okay? Thank you, and have a good day.